No DQ Galaxy. We are live with a recap of Friday Night Smackdown or Friday Night Milkdown, depending on how you're looking at it. Friday, December 9th, 2022. Shout out to the early birds, Taylor Made, Dave is a Beastly, Darren G, Virtue is here, Ken terminates DQ, Caleb Jacobs, Jeff Meacham Network. The big players are here tonight, I see. Anyways, let's get down to this Friday Night Milkdown recap, and you'll know why I'm calling it that in just a few moments, unless, of course, you watched the show. Then you know why. Anyways, we kicked off with a match for a change. We had Sheamus and Butch challenging the Usos for the SmackDown Tag Team titles. Now, originally, Drew McIntyre was supposed to be in this match, but he suffered a ruptured eardrum, same injury that Roman Reigns got at Survivor Series, and he's out of action for a couple of weeks. Match was changed. Good match here, although to be totally fair, I never thought for a second that the titles would change hands. Even if Drew McIntyre was in the match, I would not have predicted a title change on a random episode of SmackDown. But a good match nonetheless. Sheamus and Butch were working well together, the brawling brutes. Sheamus used Butch for a rolling senton, but then the Usos got the upper hand for a while. Eventually, Sheamus got the tag in. Sheamus and Butch did the beats. Butch did more of them. He was a wild man, not Mark Marrow. Butch came off the top with a moonsault to the outside on both Usos. And then the Usos regained the upper hand. Sheamus saved Butch from getting hit with the 1D. Butch hit a sit-down power bomb, but Jey Uso kicked out. And then Butch and Sheamus hit a Razor's Edge and neck breaker combo, but Jimmy Uso broke up the pin. Sami Zayn attempted to interfere, but Ridge Holland stopped him. However, he also had Solo Sikoa out there, and Solo hit the spinning solo to Ridge over the barricade, and you had Ridge crashing onto the floor by the timekeeper's area. And then back in the ring, Jimmy Uso got tagged in. Butch did not see it. Standard WWE tag match where somebody tags in and the legal participant on the other side did not see the tag. And Usos hit the 1D. Sami Zayn was able to stop Sheamus. He grabbed at Sheamus's foot, preventing Sheamus from making the save. Thus, still your WWE Tag Team Champions, the Usos. Good match here, like I said. Backstage, we had Kurt Angle with Gable Steveson, who we have not seen since WrestleMania 38, I believe. He has been at the Performance Center, and Braun Strowman approached them, and Strowman was like, SmackDown can use a good guy like Gable Steveson, and maybe one day Steveson will get these hands. We'll see about that. And Virtue said, with no animosity between Sami and Jey, feels like it's losing steam. I do think they have to do the turn pretty soon. I sense, if not next week, within the next month or so, Royal Rumble, you really have to do something to cause the split with the Usos and Sami Zayn. Caleb Jacobs with a $2.42 super chat. Thank you for that, Caleb. Says, how about the Olympic Dairymen? Well, that could be the name for Kurt Angle and Gable Steveson's team if they ever decide to work together. Thank you for that super chat, Caleb. Much appreciated. And as Walter said, it definitely looks like something is brewing with Solo. We'll talk about that here more in just a moment. We had LA Knight come to the ring for a promo. He feels he has struck a nerve and he has struck fear in Bray Wyatt. He showed the footage from the past few weeks where he got attacked and you could see the mask. He made sure to show a close-up of the mask in the dark room, thus proving that it was Bray Wyatt behind the attacks. Then all of a sudden we had Uncle Howdy interrupt the segment with the little video footage and his face on the screen. He said the door is closing. LA Knight had enough of this. LA Knight decided he was going to go to the backstage area and get his hands on Bray Wyatt. We had an interview from earlier in the day with Legado del Fantasma, but the real story here was behind them, Shotzi had been attacked. We saw Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler walking away from where Shotzi was. Shotzi's hand was hurt apparently, and it was later confirmed that she suffered a broken hand, but we did not actually see the attack. We just assume it was Ronda and Shayna, whoever Shayna is, Shayna Baszler. Shanti sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Shanti says, missed SmackDown even though I'm back in the East Coast of boring Florida. Thanks to No DQ, I am up to date, LOL. Milk Mania is running wild. I feel bad for you, man. You go from Hawaii to Florida. And as somebody who's been to both states, with all due respect to people that live in Florida, I'd much rather be in Hawaii. But glad to have you back with us tonight, Shanti. Thank you for tuning in. We had Legado del Fantasma in a match against the Viking Raiders. By the way, I just got a text message. Apparently, Jon Moxley started bleeding on AEW Rampage. Breaking news, everybody. But thank you to everybody watching this instead of Rampage, or maybe you're watching both, which is fine. You're here, so I do appreciate it. And thank you to the on-demand people as well. I know sometimes you just cannot resist watching Rampage. Legado del Fantasma and Viking Raiders, Zelina Vega on commentary, but match was very quickly hijacked. B-Fab showed up. She sat on a chair, acted like she was going to watch the match, but it was a distraction. Hit Row came in, jumped both teams. B-Fab threw I was going to say Liv Morgan, Sarah Logan. B-Fab threw Sarah Logan, whatever her new name is. I forgot already. Valara or something like that. I don't know. I don't care. She's just Sarah Logan to me. B-Fab threw her over onto Zelina Vega. Hit Row had their big celebration, and the crowd went mild. There was like no reaction for Hit Row. Feels like they're really bombing since coming back. I feel like the crowd just doesn't care about these guys. Maybe they needed some vignettes. Maybe they needed a different approach, but they feel flat on SmackDown. Maybe Vince McMahon was right. Maybe his gut feeling was these guys do not connect with the audience. He may be proven to be right. So far, it's been a lackluster run for them, in my opinion. Next week, there is going to be a three-way match with these teams, and next week SmackDown will be in Chicago. Should be a pretty eventful show as one of the final major shows heading into the new year. Although on December 30th, that episode of SmackDown will have the return of John Cena. John Cena coming back. That will definitely get people talking, and that will really be the beginning of when things start to pick up. That's the beginning of the build for the Royal Rumble. Speaking of the Royal Rumble, Matt Riddle is out of action for 6 weeks. That was also announced on SmackDown due to the attack by Solo Sikoa, and my gut feeling is that means Riddle will make his grand return at the Rumble and probably eliminate Solo Sikoa. That feels like they're building that up for WrestleMania. Definitely seems like that's going to be a WrestleMania match. Matt Riddle versus Solo Sikoa. I'm game. I think that should be a fun match. And if Randy Orton was around, obviously I'd say do something with Orton, but doubt he's going to be at WrestleMania at this point. So Solo Sikoa versus Matt Riddle, let's go. I'm up for it. And Virtue said maybe John Cena will announce he's in the Royal Rumble. Maybe. I mean, you have to think Cena's there for a reason, and it's not just a random ass appearance like the one he did 6 months ago, although that was supposed to be for his anniversary of his debut. We had LA Knight backstage in the locker room. He found a Bray Wyatt t-shirt, but then there was another guy in a mask. He was attacked once again by somebody, whether it's Bray Wyatt or one of Bray Wyatt's alter egos. I guess we'll have to find out at some point what's going on with this. We had Kurt Angle having a big party backstage with Street Profits, Gable Steveson, and some others. I think Madcap Moss and Emma. And Jason Jordan showed up. We had a little Kurt Angle reunion with his son, Jason Jordan. Nice little throwback moment here. I appreciated it. We then had a contract signing between Ricochet and Gunther. They took one of my most disliked segments on WWE television. Actually, two of them, 2 for 1. So I hate to say this, but I have to letter grade down for this. Ricochet and Gunther, New Day immediately interrupted. Theme of the show here. A segment starts and there's a interruption right away. They plugged NXT Deadline. They also made some jokes. They said they were there to watch Ricochet's back. And they said Gunther has a resting Gunther face. Gunther was not amused by any of this. He said that he's going to beat Ricochet in the worst way possible. He said that Imperium are professional wrestlers. They're not performers. And then New Day once again joked how Imperium can't perform. And they started a chant that Ricochet added that there are pills for that kind of issue. Things got very heated with these guys, and Adam Pearce called a referee out there for a match. So yeah, it was one of those talking segments that turns into a match, which I think is a very overdone segment. Contract signing on top of it. Oh, Colin Andrew is like, have you ever watched wrestling? Which was another line that was used during the segment because Adam Pearce thought that nothing can go wrong in a contract signing. And then Xavier Woods is like, have you ever watched wrestling? So yeah, I mean, it had its moments, but I hate the contract signings. I hate the promos that turn into a match. Just drags out and makes the show feel longer than it actually is, in my opinion. So anyways, we had a brawl breakout, and then we had the 6-man match, which was very good, but a standard tag team match. They worked over Xavier Woods for a while. Kofi Kingston would tag in, but then Imperium with some dirty tactics, and Kofi Kingston got thrown over the announce desk, and then they worked over Kofi for a while. Then Ricochet tagged in. Him and Gunther went at it for a while. Ricochet almost pinned Gunther. New Day tagged in. Breakdown, everybody in the ring at the same time. Ricochet took out Imperium. Kofi Kingston hit the tip, the Trouble in Paradise to Kaiser, and then Ricochet hit the shooting star press to get the 1-2-3 victory. Gunther, as I like to say, built up some momentum heading into next week's match where he will likely lose to Gunther, unless Triple H is absolutely batshit insane which I don't think he is. We had Alpha Academy backstage. They were on SmackDown. They were attempting to get into the party, but the party had a guest list, and they were not on the list. Poor Alpha Academy. Chad Gable. What did he ever do to piss off Kurt Angle? We then had the Usos and Sami Zayn backstage, and Jey Uso had a little piece of advice for Sami Zayn. Since Roman Reigns is coming back on next week's show in Chicago, Jey felt that maybe Sami Zayn should trim his hair, trim his beard, because he does think it's going to be a big night for Sami Zayn. Is this going to be the night next week where Swerve Roman Reigns reveals that the Bloodline never cared about Sami Zayn? They were only using him the entire time. They hated his guts, but they figured they would pretend to be his friend so they can win a couple matches. Will it happen? Man, that would be a hot angle in Chicago, I'll tell you that. Chicago would definitely react to that. It would be a fun moment. They would get a lot of heat. If they pull the trigger on it, next week is a pretty good night to do it. Right before Christmas, too. Beat the holy hell out of Sami Zayn. And that's your final big angle to close out 2022. I'd like it. And Building Nexus with the $2 super chat says, is the haircut a sign too? You may be onto something. Babyface Sami Zayn had the short hair. What if they beat the shit out of him and then shave his head? Shave him bald. That would be humiliating. Walter thinks they might just make him officially an Uso. But I agree with Virtue. I think they gotta pull the trigger on this split pretty soon. Like they've played it out over a couple months, but we're getting close now to the Rumble, and you got Elimination Chamber in Montreal. I think you gotta pull the trigger on it pretty soon. If not next week, I think it has to be by the Rumble for sure. We had Rey Mysterio in the trainer's room. Remember, he was hurt by Dominic Mysterio on Thanksgiving. And you had Karrion Kross and Scarlett confronting Ray. And Kross had a little message. Security was called, by the way. But before they arrived, Karrion Kross told a story of how Scarlett had a horse, a thoroughbred, but eventually it became useless. It got old, and Kross said that it's really sad when an animal has to be put out of its misery. And then security showed up, and Kross could not actually do anything to poor little Rey Mysterio. I'm thinking this is just a little filler feud until we get closer to WrestleMania, Royal Rumble, when Rey and Dominic cross paths again, and that will set up the WrestleMania match. We had another Lacey Evans basic training video. The mission continues, and I do not care. I have little to no interest in seeing Lacey Evans with this rehashed gimmick yet again. We had a tag team match, Liv Morgan and Tegan Nox versus Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler. Tegan Nox got a nice little video package, which was a good idea to reintroduce her to the audience. I'm all for this. Footage shown of her various injuries, the torn ACL, coming back, getting injured again, getting betrayed by Dakota Kai. Good stuff here. Another basic match, not a whole lot to it. Ronda Rousey was teasing Liv Morgan. Tegan Nox did get in some offense, but then Ronda took control after Shayna Baszler tagged out. And then Raquel came down. Raquel got involved, and she was trying to get into the ring. You had Adam Pearce and the officials holding her back, and Ronda was going to the outside of the ring. As this was going on, Tegan Knox hit the shiniest wizard to Shayna Baszler and got the 1-2-3 victory. Shayna took another L, but I mean, really, this was the only way it could go with these 4 participants. I mean, you have to build up Tegan Knox, and Ronda's not going to be taking a pin at this stage of the game. So Shayna is there to take the pins for Ronda. It is what it is. I mean, I feel bad that Shayna's not like the old NXT Shayna, but she probably never will be again. She's basically there to be the bodyguard, but ultimately she's the Virgil to Ronda Rousey's Ted DiBiase. We had our final segment of the evening. We had the Kurt Angle birthday celebration. Ring was decorated, birthday cake, balloons, the whole 9 yards. But before Kurt Angle could really say anything, remember what I said earlier? The theme of the show, the quick interruption, immediately interrupted by the Alpha Academy. And of course, Chad Gable pissed off that they were not invited. Chad said that Kurt sucks. He has no integrity. He lost his intensity. And if he has any intelligence left, he would leave the ring. Celebration was over, according to Gable. He said that Otis was going to eat the cake. The cake, that line got a pop from the crowd. They started chanting, "Eat the cake" at Otis. Kurt did start to leave. He walked out of the ring. He walked by the stage, but then Swerve. He said that if Otis is going to eat all the cake, they will need milk. Conveniently, they had a milk truck. How did Kurt Angle know that Alpha Academy would hijack this segment? I guess he watches wrestling. He knows. He just had that milk truck ready to go on a moment's notice. Gable Steveson drove out there with the truck, and they recreated that 2001 segment with the Alliance and Kurt Angle. Kurt and Gable Steveson were throwing milk bottles at Gable and Otis. And then, sure enough, Kurt Angle grabs the hose. Clearly, Gable and Otis did not, Chad Gable, not Gable Steveson. Chad Gable and Otis, clearly they never watched wrestling back in the day because they just stood there in the ring completely oblivious, like deer in the headlights. And Kurt Angle sprayed them with milk. Otis was great. I mean, he really made the segment. Otis was selling this like crazy. The boyhood dream must have come true. He must have watched wrestling because he was more than happy to sell being sprayed with milk like nobody else's business. So the milk bath was fun. Michael Cole had all of these really goofy puns. He said that Otis and Gable better move. And he said that they were milking this opportunity. Gable and Otis were a couple of cowards and an utter failure, and said that the segment was legendary. And that was the end for Friday Night Milkdown. It was goofy, it was silly, but it was fun. I was fine with it. It was very cringe, the Michael Cole puns. But overall, I mean, I thought it was fine. Virtue brought up an interesting idea that maybe Gable Steveson should have beat the shit out of Kurt Angle here to set him up as a heel on the main roster. I would have been fine with that. I think that would have been interesting, but they're probably not ready quite yet to debut Gable Steveson. It was fine for what it was. Overall, show was all right. I mean, it was kind of a filler show. More about setting up next week in Chicago. Obviously, you got the IC title match. You got Roman Reigns returning. What's going to happen with Sami Zayn? And I feel like this was more about building up next week. I'm giving the show a B-. Not bad. Kurt Angle segment was fun, goofy, but entertaining. Rest of the show was all right. Nothing too significant to write home about. Nothing I would really say go out of your way to watch, but it was fine. If you watch the entire show, I mean, it's not going to be a waste of time. Perfectly acceptable 2-hour show. Just not the most newsworthy show, in my opinion. Cool to see Gable Steveson, and hopefully he's doing well at the Performance Center. And good old JM Jeff Meacham apologizing for missing the review, but you guys can check out his stuff over on the Jeff Meacham Network. Anyways, guys, thank you all for tuning in tonight. I very much appreciate it. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up on YouTube and leave a comment on YouTube. What was your favorite segment of SmackDown? And on the flip side, what was the worst segment? Go on the video page for this and leave a comment, favorite segment and least favorite segment from this week's SmackDown. Walter Cruz sent in a $2 super chat. Here's an interesting one. Tag team match, Gable and Kurt Angle versus Alpha Academy at WrestleMania. Honestly, that would surprise me. And the reason is that Kurt Angle's an all-time legend, but man, he looked skinny. And he did not look like he was in wrestling shape to me. He's lost a lot of muscle mass, and he just doesn't look like a guy that's about to step into the ring. He looks like a guy who is happily retired and enjoying time with his family. I don't think Kurt Angle is wrestling again, and I certainly don't think it's happening anytime in the near future. So as cool as it would be, I don't think that's going to happen. But maybe Gable Steveson gets another partner at some point to go up against the Alpha Academy. Like, that would be fun. And they had the whole thing at WrestleMania 38 with Gable and Gable, so they could certainly do a tag team match. Get in a seasoned veteran to team up, who's still active, by the way, like an active seasoned veteran to team up with him. What about Shelton Benjamin as a babyface? Maybe Shelton Benjamin and Gable Steveson against Alpha Academy. That would be fun. Anyways, guys, have a great weekend. And remember, Jeff Meacham Network will be doing the live watch along of Ring of Honor's Final Battle and NXT Deadline. I will be doing live results coverage on NoDQ.com, and I will be back after the show with a recap of Deadline. Check that out. And remember, say yes to NoDQ.com. Take care, everybody, and I will see you all next time for more.